everybody, and welcome to my next tutorial. My name is Maltenen, and today I will show you how we can create a smart volume meter that you see in my composition window. Let me just show you how it looks. And what's really cool about this is that this volume meter automatically follows the music playing in your composition, and there are a few other cool tricks that I've used to create this effect, and this is hard to explain them, just in plain words, so just follow along and you'll see what's the big deal. So okay, let's start by creating a new composition. Let's call this volume meter. Let's make 10 seconds long. Okay, square pixels, looks okay. Okay, well, first of all you need an audio clip. You've already heard what it is in my case, so we need to pre-compose this, and this is one of the tricks, and I will explain it later. Okay, now we need to create a keyframes out of the audio waveform that you can see in here. Well, After Effects comes with a function that you can find in Keyframe Assistant, and it's called Convert Audio to Keyframes. So let's apply this. And as you can see, After Effects created a null object for us with 3 sliders, one for each channel and one for both. So we are going to use only both channels, so let's just delete the rest. And as you can see, the sliders is animating. I mean, the values are changing, so this is good. And first things first, why are we pre-composing this? Well, because in case you have a volume meter already built, like I do in here, what if you would like to pre-compose this and then pre-compose it again and again and again for whatever reason? Then if we would do our volume meter in this composition, because basically we have to if we want anything to follow these keyframes, then if you would pre-compose this, leaving the music behind in the original composition, then the link would be lost and the animation wouldn't follow the music anymore. So this is the trick how you can freely pre-compose layers and your volume meters without losing that link. So first of all, we've created a composition, then we did the audio keyframes, and also there is a little problem. Let's say I would like my volume meter to have a defined height, and that I will animate it by scaling it up and down. And as you can see, this slider, we don't know the range of the values that are used in this slider. We can see that it goes to 24, 27, and basically this is pretty hard to just figure out what the values are. I think I saw 30 somewhere around here. Well, never mind that. I will show you the way around this. So let's create a new slider. Slider control, and let's drag it to our null object that After Effects created for us, and let's call this final, for example, and we are going to write an expression, and this is the most difficult part of this tutorial, I promise. It's a bit tricky, but it's as hard as it gets in this tutorial, so stay with me, okay? Well, basically what we have to do, we have to somehow find the maximum value on this slider, and then just change the range in which this slider operates, because it operates from 0 to this maximum value, whatever it is, and we would like it to operate between 0% and 100%. So between 0 and 100 values, basically. And to do that, we need to write a loop. If you're familiar with programming in any language, you probably know what I'm talking about. But there's another thing that we have to do. We have to somehow convert the time, the time in seconds, to the frame number. And After Effects helps us with this because it has a predefined functions to do that. So let's just create a variable that will hold our frame value from the given time. So let's call this frame, for example, equals. And now let's click on this triangle and let's look for global functions. Oh, you probably don't see it because of the screen recording, but here it is. It's called time to frames, and we're going to apply this. Let me just hide a bit of those controls because they're just in the way. Okay, and this is it. We don't need to modify this, so let's leave it as it is. And now we need to have a duration in frames, the duration of this composition in frames. So we need to calculate that also. So let's create a variable comp duration. We can basically use the same function, but here instead of time we are going to use this comp dot duration, and this is it, I think. Next step, we need to write a function that will look for the maximum value within these keyframes, and this is basically pretty easy. First we define our maximum value, so let's define a variable called maximum, and let's make it equal 0. And next step is to write a loop, and this is basically why we did this converting, because loops work on, because it's easier in After Effects to work with frames if we're considering a loops. So let's create this loop to look for a maximum value. So for some variable that we call I equals 1. Now the condition, so E must be less than composition duration. This is the variable that we've created in here, and in each step increase the I value with 1. This is basically this is equal to something like this: I equals I plus 1. So let's just leave it as it was. And now we are going to need two values to calculate this. We first need to convert the frames to times, so we need to convert it back because we are going to use value at time function of a layer, of a slider, and we have to provide the time value, not a frame value in there. So let's just create a variable called frames to time, FTT, and let's do frames to time. I guess there is something like that. Frames to time. You can also find it if you click on that triangle that we've clicked to create this, but I don't have a triangle in here right now because I've closed it down. I don't want to open it because I will get a huge error message that this expression isn't finished, blah blah blah. So let's just finish this up. So frames to time, and now we provide our I value, which changes all the time, and now frames per second equals, this is basically very similar to this, so don't worry about it. This comp frame duration. This should be okay. I hope we don't get any error messages. Next, we need to, just to simplify things, I will create a variable that will point to this slider that After Effects created for us. So let's call this SLD for slider. And where's my pick whip tool? I've closed it by pressing this, I believe, or this. So let's just try to figure it out. It should be something like effects or effect, I think. This is called both channels, and slider. I think this should be okay. And now we need to have the value at time from this slider, and there's a function that is called just like that. So let's call this value equals. Now that we have a variable that points to the slider, we can use this instead of this whole line. So let's just write SLD dot value at time, and here we provide this value. So this is the time for the current frame, okay? FTT. Okay. And now we are going to write a line that will find the maximum value within these keyframes, and this is basically pretty easy, because if the current value is bigger than the maximum that we have found so far, then make the maximum equal to this value. So this is pretty self-explanatory. And let's close the loop. Let's just check if there are no errors. No, there will be an error, so let's just write anything, because After Effects always applies the last line to the value of that you're modifying with an expression. So it doesn't matter what you wrote in here if it's not used, of course, to calculate the value. It always gets the last line. So if I would just try to apply this, hey, it works. I don't know why, but it works somehow. But not the way we would like it, so let's just forget it. But hey, there are no errors. That's amazing. I've never wrote an expression that big without using a pick whip, and I didn't get an error, so this is cool. Okay, so let's now, like I said at the beginning, we need to change the range in which this slider operates. So this operates between 0 and maximum that we have found in here, and we want this to operate between 0 and 100. So there is a function for that also, and it's called linear. And now we are taking the value that we are going to change, so this will be our slider value. Now what is the original range? So this is from 0 to maximum, and we want this to be changed to 0 to 100. And this is it. This is the whole expression. Let's just turn this again. As you can see, it's already working. We found a value close to 30 that was a maximum, at least I think so. I didn't see any higher values. Oh, there are higher values. As you can see, our expression calculates that 30 should be something like 84 and 81. So this is the maximum value. As you can see, the expression works. The values are being scanned for the maximum value, and then they are converted to 0 to 100 range. And this is exactly what we need. Pretty cool. Okay, let's move to the next step. We can close this now. Let's close this also. And here we have our volume meter composition that we've created in the beginning. So now we can create a volume meter. So let's create a new solid. Let's make it whatever color other than black so you could see it. And let's well, we can of course make it a comp size, but let's make it a bit smaller, so maybe 400 pixels and 300 width. Okay. let's assume this is okay and that this looks nice. What's the next step? Well, we would like to colorize this to look more like a volumeter, so we are going to apply a ramp effect to create a gradient. But as you probably know, this ramp effect comes with only two colors. We have a start color and end color, and we would like to have, for example, 3 colors or even more. And there's a cool trick that will allow you to do this without any additional plugins or drawing this in Photoshop or whatever. And we can apply Colorama Effect. Let's just find it. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Okay. As you can see, we have a whole range of values, and now we are going to change the output cycle, and this is where we can set the colors. So let's just hold this and drag it off, drag it out, so we just lose these values, and we are going to manipulate between greens. So green is going to be on the bottom, red on the top, and yellow somewhere in the middle. So this looks okay, I think. And what next? The next step would be slicing it up, horizontally, so it looks more like this. More like this. And to do that, we are going to apply a grid effect, which is somewhere in generate, probably. Yes, generate grid. And this doesn't look okay yet, so let's change the blending mode to I wish I knew normal, maybe. No, not normal. I would like this to be transparent. So yes, this is it. And now let's just change the size from corner pin to this, and now we can just tweak it up so it looks more like, more useful. Can we just write something in here? Yes, we can. This is good. Okay. And maybe something like this. And is there an option to invert this? Yes, there is. Okay, let's just turn to 100% so we can see what it looks like. Maybe something like that. Yes. This looks okay, I think. Okay, so let's leave it as it is, and this, we are already halfway through the whole tutorial, and now the second trick is to somehow scale it up and down, but we don't want this to, scale like this, because we just want to hide, we want to mask some areas that, and this should be, automated with this expression that we already created. So to do that, we need to duplicate this layer. So let's select the layer and hit Ctrl D. And next, we can turn all the effects off, or let's just delete them. Let's call this mask. So hit Enter on your keyboard, type in mask, and here we can call this meter. And we are going to drive opacity of this layer with opacity of this layer. So let's just choose an alpha matte. Let's just see if it works. Yes, it works. Okay. Let's leave it at 100. Let's turn off the uniform scaling. And if we want this to look like the original meter that I've created for you, so the direction of scaling is, bottom up, like so, we need to change the anchor point of this layer so it scales from this point, upwards. And to do that, you would have to go to transform an anchor point, but then, as you can see, the layer moves, and this is not what we want. But there's a cool tool in After Effects that I've discovered some time ago. I just didn't see any use for it until I've started writing expressions and doing things, pretty dynamically. And this is very, very good tool. We can just select this, then grab the anchor point. Let's hold down Shift so it sticks, in the same X position. I'll just drag it down somewhere around here. And now, when we scale it up and down, it looks okay. Well, it jumps a bit, but I think we're good. Okay, and now the next step is to, of course, drive this scale value with the values that we've created the expressions for. So to do that, we would naturally be thinking about, alt-clicking on the stopwatch and then using the pick whip. But we don't have, our target visible anywhere in the application window, and we can of course write it by hand, but I'm not as good in expressions and in knowing what After Effects would like me to write. So here's a cool trick how you can do this. Grab the timeline window and just put it in here so you have two timelines visible at the same time. And now let's alt click on the stopwatch and let's use the pick whip tool and then select this slider and hit enter to confirm. Now we can close this, and as you can see, the expression is created for us. Let's just see how it looks. Well, it doesn't look the way we want it to, and you are probably thinking, what is this temp value? What is this temporary value? Well, basically, scale value is a two-dimensional value. So, and we've pointed to one-dimensional value. So, After Effects is clever enough to figure this out and hold this value in a temporary variable, and then provide a two-dimensional value with this variable, like so. And this would be okay, but we want this to stay the same. So let's just select this, because this is the width parameter, and let's use the pick whip tool to point it to whatever it was. Hit enter, and now everything scales exactly how we want it. So let's just do a quick RAM preview of this. Okay, it looks nice, but we don't hear any music. Well, this isn't much of a problem, because we can just drag, not the music clip. It's best to drag the composition in here. And now we do a quick RAM preview. Let's just see how it works. Well, it looks nice, but I would like our volume meter to reach higher values more often. So, to go to the red area, and there's only one peak that just lights up the red area, and I will show you a way how to fix this. We are going to create a new null object. Let's call this controller, and let's also create a slider. And just drag it onto the layer, and let's call this multiply, and we are going to use this value to just scale up whatever it is in here. So let's just rename this to something more meaningful. Let's call this volume, and let's change it also in here, volume, and we need to multiply this value with the value of the slider. And you might be wondering, why are we multiplying? We could just add the value so it just goes up more often. But then if we would do that, let me just lock this palette for now so I can see the slider. If we would do that, then if the volume would stay at 0 like it is in here, then the offset would make it go to green or to whatever value, and this is not good. Well, I can show you. Just make it add the value of the slider, and well, this works, of course, but let's leave it at 0 and nothing changes. But let's say I would like the volumeter to reach the red area at this point, so it looks like offset of with a value of 17 works fine, and everything seems okay until we reach the place where it was at 0, and this is the place, I think. Let's just, yes, because it's as you can see, the values are pretty close, so this should be 0, and this is why are we multiplying, not adding. And but there's also one thing with multiplying. If we would sorry for this, if we would use a multiply, then we would get red area all the time, and if we would have this set to 0, then we would have nothing visible all the time. So the first step is to multiply this by the slider value plus 1, so we never have the 0 value of the slider, really. And the next step is to divide. We need to divide this slider value, whatever it is, by some factor. Let's say 1000 probably would be good, because then we can pump it up really far and have a slight difference on the image. So this would be a good approach to this case. So let's just make things easier for us. Let's change this to a variable MLP for multiplier, and next let's divide this by 1000, for example, and here let's multiply the volume by MLP plus 1. And right now the slider does not affect our animation, as you can see in here. And as you can see in here, when I'm pumping this up really far, we have a very slight difference in here. But when the volume is above 0, because here it was close to 0, we have, the slider affects the animation, and this is exactly what we want. So let's see how it looks. Let's do a quick RAM preview. Well, this looks okay. I think we could end the tutorial at this point, but I would like to show you some other tricks. For example, what if you would like this volume meter to scale in both directions? I mean, from the center, up and down. And if you would like to move it away or scale it down, for example. Of course you can scale it down, but you have to scale down the mask also, and the scale property of the mask is driven by this expression, so this would ruin everything. And to avoid this kind of situation, let's select both of the layers and let's parent them to our controller layer, and just to be safe, we can hide this make this shy layers and then switch the shy button in here. And now we can move the null object, we can move the controller layer and scale this up and down and do, pretty much anything with it, and it still behaves exactly the same. So this is exactly what we want. And yes, it works. You all see that it works. Okay, so let's just talk about changing the appearance of this volume meter. Like I said, for example, if you would like it to scale in both directions, well, this is what makes this technique really useful, because you can do pretty much anything with this volume meter if you build it the way I did. So let's make it scale in both directions. Well, to do that, first of all, it would be safe to turn off the expression for now, and we need to change this gradient. So let's go back to our meter layer. Let's go back to Colorama Effect, and I think we need to have a yellow slider in here and another yellow slider in here, and green somewhere in here. And the next step is to change the anchor point of our mask layer, and to do that we are using a free pen tool. I believe it is called free pen behind, sorry for that. So let's just drag this up to the middle, and this is it, I think. Oh no, we have to turn on the expression, so let's click in here, and voila! Just imagine what you can do with this. It's pretty useful. And you can of course freely adjust the appearance of this. You can, for example, create an adjustment layer and then apply the glow effect, for example. Let's use stylized glow. And you can turn on the motion blur for this layer, and then just tweak up the composition settings in here. Shutter angle, let's make it 200, for example, and this would make a smoother animation. This would be, but it takes more time to render. So let's turn this off in here. Just to show you how useful this is, let's make some duplicates of this volume meter. So let's just select these layers, or no, you know what, let's just pre-compose this. Ctrl-Shift-C, pre-compose, final meter, and it still works, as you can see. And now let's make a duplicate, and let's make a duplicate again. So let's just scale them down a bit. So select two layers, press S on your keyboard, and let's turn the glow off for now. Scale this down. Let's scale this down, and let's move it away to here, and let's move this one to the side also. Maybe it's not really pretty, but that's not the point right now. As you can see, everything works smoothly. We don't have to link the expressions to the music anymore. Everything is linked already, and you can do anything with it. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. and you can find other tutorials on my website www.maltenon.com. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.